No matter what happens at the end of today, the Rangers will split. They'll leave. They'll head to Seattle. But will it be with a split? It's a 2-game series. They still have a chance to ensure not losing said series. We preview the final game of this series with the Arizona Diamondbacks on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Rangers can't win this series. They've won 4 in a row, but they can split it, and that would be a victory and would mean they get a victory today. Hi there, and welcome to the DLLS studios. It's DLLS Rangers podcast with me, John Radigan, and Jeff Wilson, and Abby Jones, and we do not play or talk about this game in a vacuum. So we remember and realize it is 9/11. 23 years ago today was one of the worst in any of our memories, one of the worst in American history. There aren't words to describe how horrible that day was. And so we remember that day. We said we'd never forget even back then. And we mostly think of and pray for those people who died that day. They were heroes, and their families live on as heroes to this day. It's not something that's lost on us, Sebs.
No doubt about it. I will say I was only 5 years old when it did
small.
happen.
Yeah.
So I don't have, my own personal memories. But what are the things that you guys remember about that day?
Well, I was in Colorado. I'd been to my friend Marcus's wedding just a few days earlier, and the night before was the first game at the new Broncos Stadium. Mile High had been torn down, so I went to that game against the Giants, the Ed McCaffrey broken leg game. So then the next morning, I'm supposed to play golf, and phone rang, and it was my sister. She goes, "Hey, they just flew a plane in the World Trade Center." I was like, "Oh man, that's terrible," And then I was like, "All right, well, I got to get ready to play golf," and then it happened again. And so I'm listening to the radio, and this is before, kind of when cell phones are just starting.
Yeah.
Not everybody had one, so the guys I'm playing golf with didn't have phones. So I drove up to the golf course, and all kinds of terrible things are happening in the car ride. I'm listening to the radio. We're in the pro shop, and the towers collapsed. And the guy looked at me. He's older than me, and he said, "Well, we might as well just play." And so we played golf, and just talked about it every time the beverage cart came by. We asked for updates, and afterwards we went and had delicious Mexican food, and just sat and watched it and couldn't believe it. Talked to my mom; she was crying. Just a terrible, terrible day.
It was awful, and it's interesting. Same as we say.
You were golfing too?
I played golf. In fact, because we're an hour earlier, we were already on the course, and it was the beverage cart person that came by and said, they flew a plane into the World Trade Center, and, we're kind of like, "You're sure Bruce Willis was nowhere on the screen?" Like, it was just so hard to believe.
Right.
We thought she had mistaken it for a movie or something,
right.
Yeah. And then same thing, we finished and got updates through the day, and then when I got into that pro shop at the end and saw the video that was still happening, I couldn't believe it. And, of course, that night I was supposed to do Rangers pre and post game from Fox Sports Net. And, games got canceled. Everything got canceled. We didn't do any sports for a long time, and that was by far the right choice. But Abs, I know you had a chance to talk to your dad about this today. An even better choice was bringing sports back.
Yeah, he was in Detroit in 2001, and, he shared, at that time, we were already back in school, me and my brother. So me, my brother, my mom, small town Alabama, things were just a little bit different. So, he was on a road trip in Minnesota, and they went back to Detroit, and collectively the league had a decision to make. Do we want to stop playing the game of like in the season here basically, or do we want to keep playing? And I asked my dad, like, what's the consensus? And he said, like everyone else in the world, I don't know if hide is the word, but there wasn't like a willingness really to play. And then they did decide to continue on, and he said that first game ever, we watched a little bit of the highlights, still got chills. It just reminds you that the bigger purpose behind sports is to unite and really come together in these type of moments. And so, it's one of those weird things. You rally together, and you saw sports showcased in a very different light that day.
Yeah. The Rangers were on the road, John, as you know, and T.R. Sullivan wrote a story about that experience for Rangers Today. I tweeted it out about an hour ago. It just kind of recalls, because they were on the West Coast, so it was very early when this happened, and he talks about his memories. He got a call from his wife. Oh, thank God you're okay. And then the journey to get home, and the work that Chris Lingus, the former traveling secretary, who passed away a few years ago, the work he did to get them a flight. He found them a flight. They were in the Bay Area, and they made it to Bakersfield and hopped on a plane. Otherwise, they were going to take a 24-hour bus ride back to Texas. So I remember going to a game right after play resumed at the old ballpark. Not the old ballpark, but the most recent ballpark. Yeah. And I remember because, the ballpark is in the flight patterns of all of DFW, and I remember every time I heard a plane. I just remember it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Mets are away today. They're in Toronto, and then Yankees will host the Royals at home.
Yankees host the Royals,
we saw the patch that the players will wear on their jersey. So, definitely continue to remember.
Baseball remembers. They always do, and it's a very noble act of remembering so that we really don't ever forget what happened that day. The Rangers, meantime, conclude their series in Arizona, and they will do it with Cody Bradford on the mound. And it's just been so much fun to watch Cody Bradford pitch, because he's one of those guys that, like, you almost go, how's he doing this? He doesn't have overpowering stuff, but he's a low 90s from the left side with great command, Jeff.
I think low 90s is generous. I think he's he's upper 80s. I think
that's true.
I think depending on what he had for breakfast, he might get one into the lower 90s. But it's the command, and even though his fastball is only 90 miles per hour, he still throws it, and he throws it to all four quadrants. He's not afraid to go inside with it. It helps set up the changeup, which is a really, really good pitch, and always has been a good pitch. We've talked about, Abby, how he's added the curveball, worked on it really hard in spring training, and then got early results from it. So he's evolving as a pitcher. But the thing that the Rangers love about him is he's always ready for anything, and he doesn't get rattled. And if you watch him throughout his starts, he gets better as the game goes along. And for somebody who had 50 innings last year and is up to around 40 this year.
40 and 2/3.
So he doesn't have 100 major league innings yet, and he handles himself like a veteran. So pretty impressive stuff.
Sorry.
Oh,
40 since the injury.
Oh, 40 since the injury. All right, so probably
80, maybe
60, maybe.
Yeah, no. He only made three starts. Three starts. Okay.
So anyway,
I can look this up.
So he's got 110 innings. Let's say. Anyway, not a lot, not a full season.
No.
And he carries himself and prepares like he's been doing it for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's really a joy to watch a guy like that, because he is a bulldog, and he is one of those guys that's unflappable out there, and you love a demeanor like that, and that is literally, I believe, something that's not coachable, right? You have that or you don't.
62 innings pitched for Bradford, just to answer
this
your question.
Season?
Yeah. And since coming back, he's had 7 starts since coming back on injury, a 2.8 ERA.
That's
so
the thing.
13 earned runs over 40 and 2/3 of an innings pitched.
Yeah. And 5 of them came in when he came off the injured list. He relieved Max Scherzer in St. Louis and gave up 5 runs in in his first inning.
Yeah.
So if you take away his work as a reliever, the one time, it's even better. But To your point about being unflappable, things like that, he's a young guy, but he's deeply rooted in his faith. He has a lot of conviction there. His dad, Randy, is a good guy who was a Rangers Today subscriber and from Aledo. So he's got the local ties. There's just so much to like about the story. Yeah. At Baylor, he was I think he was the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year as a sophomore. Then he gets drafted. He's draft eligible. Everything's great, but he had to have thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. The Rangers took him in the sixth round anyway. He did not pitch that year. COVID followed, so he didn't pitch that year. So really, he went 2 years without pitching. And but when he got back into it, he just he dominated the lower levels. And last year at the start at AAA, he was the Pacific Coast League pitcher of the month of April, and he made his debut a few days later.
You know what's really funny about Cody Bradford's debut? I was at the beach with my family, and we were getting chairs, and I was just kind of making conversation with like the chair guy. And he asked what I did with work, said I worked with the Rangers. He's like, oh, my brother's in the farm system, or my brother-in-law's in the farm system there. And I was like, oh, what's his name? Maybe I've heard of him. And he said, Cody Bradford. And I was like, he's about to get caught up tomorrow. And we've kind of stayed connected ever since. And yeah, it's fun to cheer on the hometown guy. I think that you get the most out of a guy that's playing for the hometown team. I mean, he is so prideful to be from the state of Texas and to play for the Texas Rangers.
I'm just going to say, the only job that might be better than a Major League Baseball player is the guy that gives you the chairs at the beach. You see what I'm saying? What a job. I'm at the beach all day. That's work.
They get like 29,000 steps a day. It's like a workout, and you get paid, and you tan. I mean, it's hard work, no doubt about that.
No doubt. Yeah, and I'm kidding. I mean, it's a difficult job, but it's at the beach.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you're like 17, 18, it's great.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, good for Cody Bradford.
49.
Or 49. There you go.
If this doesn't work out, let's see what happens.
Yeah. One of the reasons the Diamondbacks are so good is because of their pitching. And we saw it last night with Gallen, and the Rangers are going to see it with Kelly again today, Jeff.
Yep.
Yeah, Kelly's been hurt this year, but he's their solid second best starter, I think. Right-hander. The Rangers, the only game they lost in the World Series was to Merrill Kelly. He was lined up for Game 6 if they didn't win Game 5. What makes him tough is. And what makes a lot of these Diamondbacks pitchers tough is they have multiple fastballs that go different directions. And
Rangers struggle with
the Rangers struggle with the fastball. It's not just this year either. It was last year too. Despite all that they did, they were a great off-speed hitting team, but not on the heater. So you're seeing that again this year. But he's come back at a good time for the Diamondbacks too, as they try to hang on to a wild card spot. They're basically throwing in a really solid starting pitcher. He's only made 4 starts, but I think it was a shoulder injury. I have him on my fantasy team. I don't recall right now, but this team can pitch, and they've obviously found something on offense too, because they're averaging like 6.5 runs a game here.
I saw that
for the last certain amount of time. So Cody's going to have his hands full. The Rangers are definitely going to have their hands full at the plate.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Diamondbacks have spent the money on the pitching. I was telling you guys earlier, Jordan Montgomery, Rodriguez, Gallen, and Kelly account for 1/3 of this team's payroll.
Yeah.
And Kelly is coming off of that shoulder injury like we talked about. But he's had 4 starts off the IL, so a 6.7 ERA. I mean, you're hoping that he doesn't really hit his stride today in the Rangers game. I mean, they've spent the money on the pitching, and it seemed to work.
Like last year when Nathan Eovaldi came back, he didn't have a rehab assignment. It was in September, not August, like Kelly came back. But Eovaldi really struggled. Mm-hmm. He really, really struggled, and his last start of the regular season was in Seattle, and it didn't go great. Like the first 3 innings were really good, and then he just gave it up. So when he went into the playoffs, people were kind of like, geez, how's this going to be? And he went out and dominated. So I wonder if D-backs fans are having the same reservations right now about Merrill Kelly. You hope that maybe he still has that 6.7 ERA after today. But I think that the best pitching is probably still ahead of him. He's got a couple more weeks to figure it out before they get into a short series. Well, they'll need him, but Eduardo Rodriguez is a good pitcher. Obviously, Gallen looks like Montgomery's stuck in the bullpen for now, but I'm just wonder if Torey Lovullo remembers. Hey, this guy was really good in the postseason last year. Even he lost game 2 to Kelly, but he pitched well. He He gave up 4 runs, but 2 were inherited runners who scored. So I wonder if some of that would rub off and they'd remember it and say, hey, we need to give this guy a chance. At least have him on the postseason roster. You never know what could happen.
Yep, it's absolutely true. Speaking of how well Gallen did last night, it was sort of a flashback to the early part of August for the Rangers and times before that last night, as they managed only 3 hits against Zach Gallen and actually only 2 against Gallen and then 1 against 4 other pitchers that the Diamondbacks sent out there. They had Gallen go 5 and then 4 different guys go 1 and they win the game. And they shut the Rangers out. And there were only 3 hits. And I guess the best news of that, Abby, is that the 3 all came from the same guy.
Yeah. It's, I had a stat yesterday. Let me see if I can try to, because, Arizona's bullpen in the last 11 games, a 9 ERA. So it actually is kind of interesting that their bullpen came in and they were a little bit clutch. It was very uncharacteristic. I do want to mention Nathan Eovaldi's back-to-back home runs. I mean, can you even remember the last time Evo did that? I'm going to chalk that one up as an uncharacteristic start, no doubt. But yeah, Wyatt Langford is doing it all. We've got to talk about it. Yeah,
that was the thing. I mean, Wyatt had a great game. Nobody else did offensively, but Wyatt has had a great September, which is nice to see. It's a rookie who, if he finishes strong, which he clearly is on pace to do, everybody can just feel as good as at the end of this year as we were feeling at the beginning of the year about him. And of course, he's a rookie. There were ups and downs, but to finish on an up, I think would be great for him.
Yeah, he's 22. He had the great catch last night. So it's not only offensively he's providing, defensively as well. In the month of September, 9 games, 2 home runs, 9 RBI, 8 runs scored, a 3.33 batting average, but he doesn't even have the best batting average on the team in September. Do you know who's ahead of him?
Nate Lowe.
Nathaniel Lowe. He's been hot as of late. He's hitting 346. I just ran the numbers, though, of September baseball for the Rangers. Few things I want to point out. Josh Young and Wyatt Langford are really combining and matching each other's game offensively. They lead the team with hits. They both have 12. Home runs, they both have 2. RBI, that's Adolis and Wyatt Langford. I think they have 9. So you are, you're seeing a consistent effort from Wyatt Langford. And in the game of baseball, consistency is the number one thing.
Yeah. It is, but it's also the most difficult thing.
Right. No
it's
doubt
the
about
most
that.
difficult thing because, again, if you hit the ball and get a hit 1 out of 3 times, you're a stud. You're like, Hall of Famer now.
Yeah.
And so, that means 2 out of 3 you fail. So consistency is a very difficult thing. It's one of the things that Marcus Semien has done so well over his career, and it's certainly the thing that Corey Seager brings to the table because of his consistent approach. It is a little troubling, though, Jeff, how many times this season that, Bruce Bochy will just say at the end of the game, well, they pitched really well. Yes, they did. I mean, it's Zach Gallen. He pitched well. But I know Boch doesn't like saying it either, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to give their pitchers credit that often.
Yeah, and I guess, obviously a game plan, a scouting report was ready for the Rangers by every team to start the season,
Yeah.
And maybe at the start of the year, the pitchers weren't as sharp. That's why the Rangers had such a good April. I mean, in April, they had the top offense in baseball for most of the month, and Adolis Garcia was so good. But then, as the season goes along, these pitchers get sharper, they get more dialed in, and the Rangers got exposed. I mean, the fastball thing has been a story all year. Adolis chases the high fastball, but but he didn't hit the fastball last year either. He was second worst in the American League. He has a really long swing. He has the longest swing in the American League. It needs to be quicker, and you know, it's something that he needs to work on. And you know, one of the a Rangers employee will say that doesn't want to be on the record, but said, you know, pitchers spend the off season looking at everything they can to get better, trying to do whatever it takes to, you know, a new pitch or add velocity, going to drive line in Seattle or to tread in North Carolina, trying to get better, trying to figure out a way to get these guys out more consistently. And Adolis Garcia didn't counter that. And so he's in the middle of his season. It's too late, you know, and he has work to do this offseason. There are some guys who you know, got to have the bat quicker, need to have it in the strike zone longer, give you a better chance to hit. So there are some things that these guys know they need to do to clean up this offseason and in spring training. You know, I still expect that Adolis Garcia will be a fearsome power hitter, but he will be a better at the job at doing that with some adjustments that he needs to make. Rangers hitting coaches would be willing to work with him, I'm sure. You know, he lives in Tampa in the off season. Not a terrible flight. The airport's okay there. The rental car situation's not any good anymore, as you got to take a train as opposed to just being right outside. But that's okay. Go work with him. Spend a week with him. Get it right. You know, Tim Hires lives in Atlanta. You know, shoot, that's a quick flight. He can drive if he wanted. Just, you know, I think if you're looking at the offense, they don't need a lot. They just need their guys to get better. Yeah. And so Jonah Heim, who Abby pointed out is hitless this month.
We will get into that.
Hey, and by the way, where's our chatters? Come on, we love you. Let's hear from you.
So
you see some? I've missed them. Okay, thank you.
I was going to propose a question talking about the off season. I want to share a stat, and then I want to have dialogue about how this can possibly become better. Jonah Heim in the month of September, like you said, is hitless. 21 plate appearances, 0 contribution. I mean, batting average, .000.
Well,
that's
an
tough any way you spin it.
It is. An 0 for 21 slump, you know, is fairly common for almost anybody, right? But when you put it in the context of the rest of Jonah's season, it's like, oh my gosh, it's gotten worse for Jonah. And here's the thing to know. There is nobody trying harder to get out of that slump that's become a season-long slump than Jonah Heim. And sometimes, you know, they always say it, hitting a round ball with a round bat is extremely difficult
to hit it square,
right? And you have to hit it square. And so it's just a hard game, and somehow it has all caught up with Jonah Heim in one season. But, you know, we don't want to, you know, trash the guy because we know he's working hard, and we know that he wants this more than you or I or any of us want it. But, man, it does become somewhat confounding, Jeff.
You can see it on his face, too.
Yeah, he's twisted up. He's a switch hitter too, so it's not. It's both sides of the plate. Yeah. So it's not like, hey, just, you know, there's conversation about Leody Taveras not hitting right-handed anymore. That hasn't come up with Jonah. So anyway, he has to work on both sides of the plate. You know, he's probably tired. He from what happened last year. But he's still a young player. You know, this was his first year of salary arbitration. His second year as a full-time catcher, but last year what he did, you know, again, we've talked about the fatigue and everything, but then, you know, there's still not last year was so good, 95 RBIs, but is that the outlier? You know, is he more like Jonah Heim, the guy he was in 2022 or this year? You hope it's obviously 2023, but if it's not, you hope it's not as dramatically down as it is this year. So, but he lives locally, so he'll be able to get work. Donnie Ecker lives locally, the offensive coordinator. you'll be able to, and Jonah will be able to get up there to the ballpark and do some heavy work with it. And I'm sure he's committed. Nobody likes stinking. So
Yeah.
I would imagine that Jonah will be another project for these hitting coaches.
I want to shed a little light on it too, because I'm the biggest advocate that players are people. I saw my dad come home many a nights, and the game affects them like you don't understand. Yes, they make a lot of money. There's a lot that goes into it. Just to point out a little bit with his personal life, he and his wife suffered a horrible tragedy this year. They lost Kenzie's mother due to her ALS battle. And then they had their third child. So just a little perspective, sometimes players are dealing with things off the field as well. I'm not excusing anything. They do have a job at the end of the day, but they are people too. And I think it's important to point out, he's not going home to, it's been a little bit tough for their family. Prayers for the Heim family.
Yeah,
that's a difficult thing to endure.
Just a fantastic perspective. It really is. And it's something that's easy to forget, even for us, but certainly for fans, that this is a human being who has all those same daily life struggles that any of us have. So, we like Jonah and we root for him. And I do believe that what he needs, what the Rangers need to do, in addition to getting, the swing right, which is, part mechanical and part mental, but in addition to that, there has to be a happy medium on how much time he spends behind the plate. It's such a demanding position in this day and age. You just can't catch as much as Jonah has in the last 2 seasons. And then you cross your fingers and hope that, he probably won't have a career year with the 95 RBIs and everything he accomplished last year. But let's land somewhere in the middle, right? Let's see where the numbers are, and let's see if we can get in the middle of this year and last year.
And you know who's the perfect person to talk to him about this? None other than Bruce Bochy.
Yeah.
I mean, to have a manager that knows the game from your side of the plate,
sure,
that's insane. I went up to this is Carson Kelly related, but I went up to Carson Kelly because he spent some time with Detroit and my dad, and I said, hey, don't tell my dad, but I do think being a catcher is like the most difficult position, and we got a joke out of it. But yeah, Bruce Bochy understands exactly what he's going through. Bruce Bochy's one of the managers that he has such a feel for his players of when they need to be pushed, and hey, I believe in you, and I need to be hard on you, or hey, this guy's going through a lot. He's the hardest critic on himself, and I'm going to encourage him, instill confidence in him. Like, there's no other person to be in his ear than Bruce Bochy right now.
Bruce Bochy was not a star player.
No.
He was a backup catcher.
Yeah.
So he understands. He had a tougher road, really.
Yeah.
He understands struggles, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jonah Heim entering this year a .232 career hitter. So, it's not like he batted .258 last year, career high in home runs and RBIs, but this regression, you hope it gets, like I said, toward the 2023 numbers.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like he was a 300 hitter coming into the year. Yeah.
No, there's a happy medium, as we like to say, and he'll find it. They'll find it. They'll work very hard on doing that. There's no doubt about that. So
there's a 1% chance that the Rangers can be in the playoffs.
Okay, you're saying there's a chance.
1%, baby. I'm taking it to the bank.
I like it. I like the opportunity, and the Rangers do too. There's no doubt about that. And they, as we've said many times, they still have the games against Seattle that will really help determine. That's what's coming next. It's a 4-gamer with Seattle, and then they get them here on the next homestand too. So there are many opportunities with the team that's directly in front of them. Will they make the playoffs? There's a lot of teams to jump. It's probably not going to happen, but they're going to keep trying, and they still can and desperately want to, finish as strongly as they can, maybe 500, maybe a little over.
Road to 81.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
They need to, what do they need to do today?
Win.
Play hard and have fun.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Play
Did you
hard
miss our memo?
and have fun.
I did miss the memo.
We made it a hashtag too. Really, my pop did.
Yeah.
Hashtag PHHF. Play hard, have fun.
That's beautiful. It's an
do it.
easy, simple solution. Play hard, have fun, and after the game, after they've done that, We'll be having fun right here on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Thanks for joining us.
We all silly like the mayor.